Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, the temperature is, 46, which is not terrible. But when I'm here in the shade of the trees, thanks to the limbs and the trunks, not to the leaves, then it's chilly. But when I'm in the sunlight, that's pretty good. There doesn't appear to be any wind, and the light is marvelous. And this is my break from writing. Write, scribble, scribble, scribble. The news today is it's a mixture of unsatisfactory decisions and actions. I want to start with Rudy Giuliani. Probably, if you've been following, you know that I've known him since I was a young lawyer, after clerking, joining the U.S. Attorney's Office. And Rudy was there, I think, about 2 years before me. And so by the time I came, he's pretty established. And the day I was sworn in, I was sent to a 5-week securities fraud case, and he went to try, starting that same day, a congressman. And his cross-examination was so effective of the congressman, Podell, I believe was his name, that he broke down during the examination by Rudy, and he entered a plea of guilty. That was the old Rudy. He was a Bobby Kennedy Democrat, and he and I talked about running for office. He asked me what I thought about him running for Staten Island. I said a Democrat would find it very hard to run for office there. And so he went down to D.C., and when he was coming back, I was going down for an assignment, and I sold him my apartment. But when he came back, he was a different person. And the reason I go back in time to talk about this is it agitates me that I didn't see the developing Rudy that we all know today, the maniac, the strange guy, the fellow without norms, without honesty, without all sorts of things that were not evident when I knew him in the U.S. Attorney's Office. And so it's taking a look back and seeing him force people to be arrested on Wall Street and then to do a perp walk, when you usually arrest people like that when you're afraid they won't show up. And the kind of people in white-collar cases, if you tell them you're going to be indicted, come to our office at 10 a.m., they're there. So he was creating, that wasn't so noticeable to me, but I always thought it was unnecessary what he was doing. And then when he was mayor, he was brutal. Some say he was racist. And he participated in the leadership of a demonstration at City Hall. So it was always there, I guess. And we saw the worst of him when he left court Monday in D.C. And the trial that he's involved in is the defamation case against two election workers who were entirely innocent of anything but hard work. And he was saying that they were messing with the election, with the votes. And he has since admitted that, which is why liability has been determined, meaning that the guilt, if you will, in a civil sense, has been established. So the question is, what damages should Rudy pay as a result of his bad conduct? And yesterday, when he came out of court, he told the reporters that, I told the truth, which contradicts what he told the court. So the court summoned Rudy to answer for what he said out of court. I was apparently quite stern and said, and this kind of stuff could lead to you being pursued for another defamation action. Sort of like what happened in New York with Trump, in connection with the alleged rape. So Rudy is mimicking, in a bad way, what Trump did. Now, the woman that he's talking about, Shay Moss, who was on the stand today, said her entire life was turned upside down. She changed her appearance. She got all sorts of hate mail, curses, and she was shunned. And here's a woman, never charged with any crime, is being treated as if she's a common criminal when she's nothing of the sort. And Rudy admitted to that. He admitted he didn't have evidence of them doing anything wrong in the election. And so, what did his lawyer say? His lawyer said he wasn't with Rudy. I don't know that that would have mattered. I don't know that the lawyer can be held responsible for a client saying and doing the wrong thing. But he did say that. And then he said something else that did not strike me in the presentation that's been taped and you may have seen of Rudy. And he said, well, maybe it has to do with age. Now, he didn't appear to be drunk. He didn't appear to be faltering over the words and expressions he was making. He appeared quite quick-witted. And I say this because he interrupted a sentence that was being asked of him by a reporter, and the leading question was, you said you did this to them, and he said, no, I told the truth. And that's why he's in this jam. I didn't know his mother, except some of the quotes that would come to us one way or the other. But she would be so disgraced by her son. Once there was an interview in which the report was that Rudy was becoming a Republican. And she said, no, not my son. He wouldn't become a Republican. So he was isolated in his own family. And his dad was apparently a low-level mobster. So it's a very sad story. I have crocodile tears for being light-handed in terms of punishment. And the punishment here could be something like $43 million. There's some number like that has been requested by the two women that he defamed. So that's a pretty stiff. I think that Rudy is living on ether now. No funds, money and actions in every direction. He doesn't have a law license. I believe it's only suspended. I don't know if they canceled it or not. He's if there was any way you could totally destroy a good reputation in a life, and I'm not sure the reputation was deserved as we look back on it, because of the element of racism and opportunism and so forth. And Biden once said about Rudy, when Rudy was running for president years ago, that every speech he gives is a noun, a verb, and 9/11. That's all Rudy could talk about was that. And to some extent, it's true that you have to talk about. I think that was the same guy that cut me off the other day. I just don't get these people. So Rudy is in this kind of 50s movies in which the walls and the ceiling and the roof are coming in on him. I am encouraged that we're approaching, too slow for me, ultimate outcomes that are disasters for the principles. And the problem about this fight and struggle is it diminishes and compromises the spirit of the nation. And that's, for example, Trump has got a new batch of cards he's selling. He calls it the mugshot edition. It's interesting. It suggests that he needs money, he's trying to get exposure because he's not getting good exposure. And I think that the special counsel has chosen a very interesting route to call everybody out and say, are you going to say this guy is immune from prosecution, Supreme Court? Are you going to take that position politically? Because it's not lawful and it's inconsistent with the Nixon case. So we've already been there for this case. And the carve-out in the Nixon case has to do with criminal proceedings being very different. So I think that may turn out to be, well, the smartest thing he could do, because I think it's no lose. There is a danger. And the danger is that the Supreme Court could be thought even more worthless than when it overturned Roe v. Wade. If the Supreme Court shows itself to be as political as was the accusation in the Bush against Gore case. Now, the flip side of that, since they all appreciate this, is to say, no, we don't have any interest in the case. We don't see a federal issue here. That would be a good way for the court to go on and the prosecution to go on. That would isolate Trump in a way that hasn't happened before. And the only thing comparable would be a judge, state or federal, putting Trump either in the hoosegow at night in jail or limiting him from talking on the air. I mean, there are a whole variety of things, but they're pretty complicated. The simplest ones are pay a fine, go to jail. So we'll see if he finds himself in that trick bag. The unsaintly Santos is discussing a plea agreement. It looks like it may happen because they're backing off the trial date and stuff like that. So I think that's important. Trump may find himself in an even more treacherous place in his defense, because his telephone records at the White House have been recovered by the investigators. And so that will be used against him as well. So the news is mixed. The other story that's a heartbreaker has to do with the Middle East. Now, Biden appears to be backing off full-fledged support for Netanyahu, and I think pressing him to support a ceasefire. I don't know what he's going to do if that doesn't happen, but he feels strongly about it. And the president of Harvard has received a lot of support from the university community, and she basically said that what she said wasn't her truth, meaning that she was so engaged in the conflict of the hearing that, and she apologized for this, that she didn't say what was right and just for her. And that is that you have to deal with such hate on a campus, and you cannot allow people to threaten violence without there being an accounting for it. So in a microcosm, what she's talking about is the problem we have nationally, the hesitance to force an accounting. But Rudy and Trump and others appear to be approaching their day of reckoning. And the Middle East is still unfolding. And there were several outrages in that area yesterday. So we're in a difficult time. You know, this is the season of peace and love and giving and charity, of Hanukkah and Christmas and other festivals and feast days and worships that have to do with this time of the year. As the light diminishes day by day until about the end of the month. And we have to have a rebirth, if you will, by what happens in the remaining days of this month. And I'm hopeful that we'll have some progress. So, I'm enjoying my walk on the Cathedral of Trees. And until tomorrow or so, I look forward to talking to you. Bye-bye.